What's up? What's up? Welcome to the Impact Podcast Show. Your host right here, Coach A. With me, I got two awesome friends of mine. I got my bro, Jeff Jimbo. Chef Jimbo.
Jeff.
Chef Jimbo, Coach
Chef
A.
Jimbo. See, you got me nervous. It's been a while since you've been to Impact.
Cool.
I'm back.
You're back. And I got my awesome sister, Chef Melissa. She don't have it by her name, but she can throw down
the financial chef. The financial chef.
Ooh, financial chef.
Yeah.
That's what's up. So I hope everybody is having an awesome Friday. Big plans for the weekend, possibly. You know me, Coach A. At this point. I'm just sticking around the house because any day now we got a baby coming. We already had 2 false alarms. Yes, one of them we jumped in the car and we was hit. I was hitting it, and then she was like, "Nah, let's turn around. It ain't time." I was like, I'm telling you, we hadn't got to Sarasota, almost to Sarasota. So, but it was a false alarm, so we had to turn back around. So, it's any minute.
Well, that means the third might be it. You know how they say third one's a charm. So
third one's a charm.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it is any minute now, any day, any minute now. So she, if I get the call or the signal, I'm out of here. I might just leave everything just like it is.
Music in the background.
Music in the background, everything. And be out of there. Exciting. Let me go ahead and hit the intro. We got before I do that, just to let you know, today we talking about healing. We talking about healing from trauma and walking through forgiveness. So we want to get a very deep discussion about that. I think is very important that we learn how to heal from trauma, from past experiences, and also forgiving, which is also a part of that as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit this intro, and then when we get back, we're gonna get into that. So appreciate you guys being tuned in right here to the Impact Podcast Show. What's up? Welcome back to the Impact Podcast Show. It's your host, Coach A. I'm with my awesome sister, beautiful sister, happily married fella. So don't be trying to jump in the inbox and trying to DM and all that stuff. But she happily married. So
yes, I am.
Back off. Melissa, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm so good. Thank you for asking. Just excited to be here for real.
We got Chef Jimbo trying to get back in.
There we go.
What's up, Chef Jimbo?
Yes, and her husband is a trained assassin.
Tell it. And so you got it trained, and you got 2 armed and dangerous brothers on the side of you too. So
better believe it.
We like the packing pastors. We ain't playing, man.
Pack, for real. I hear you, man.
So
good looks.
But anyhow, it's awesome to have you for sure. And Jimbo, you know how it is. We always get together. Me and Jimbo talk often, a lot, and for a long time.
Yeah, right. About everything, right?
About everything.
And I like Coach A because we don't always agree either. I love it.
You're right. That's good. Jimmy, I've been noticing that too. Our conversations recently have had like little differences. I'm like, yeah. I love the challenge, right? When you're challenged in your thinking. It's amazing.
Exactly. So for those of you who don't know Jimbo, right? He has a tell him about your box meals, man. If you're in this area, tell him about it.
Yes, listen, if you are in the Bradenton, Sarasota area, go to, do me a huge favor. Go to Facebook, Instagram, follow Strong Flavors Catering,
Mm-hmm.
follow my Facebook page, Jimmy Strong Jr., my Instagram page, The Chef Jimbo, and follow Family Talk. The menu will be up on Family Talk Saturday morning 9 a.m. And I listen. I give you an entire meal. And listen, it's good. I promise
It's
you, you're
good.
gonna enjoy the meals.
Yes, you will.
For
It's off the
real.
chain for sure.
Yes. One of my
For
favorite
sure.
shows out there. Definitely.
So we got Mr. Jody Skywalker commenting. What's up, Jody?
Ooh,
You know, everybody, you have to say hi to Jody. You know how
hi,
he is.
Jody.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, he'll kick you
Yes.
out, huh?
Yes. If you do not say hi to Jody, he will kick you out. So make
Okay,
sure
that
you
was the
say
test.
hi.
I passed the test.
Yes. Not only you, he'll kick you and your son or your child
And your
out. He don't
child
play.
out. Yep.
And your
Oh
child.
my
My
god.
boy Jody don't play.
Oh
So, but he
man.
loyal. Joy,
With the
he said with the
quickness.
quickness.
Yeah, we
Joy,
see that.
Jody packing too. So he loyal too. So that's my dude for real. He always ready to ride. Sometimes we have to tell him slow down. It ain't that crucial right now, Jody. It's all good. It's all good. But that's who you want on your team. You definitely want guys like that on your team that's ready to go whenever you need to defend you in a good way. In a good way. So
Absolutely,
listen,
absolutely.
trauma, man. This is a tough subject talking about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know where
There's
to
nothing
begin.
scripted
It's like
about this. I hope you guys know, like we're just
yes.
speaking from the heart, like
From
for
the
real.
heart.
Because
Now, I will tell you,
man,
I like to do research and get information because to make sure at
right,
least we having something out there to help people. But identify. It's just tough. Like there's so many issues that come out of trauma, and a lot of times people don't even realize that they're dealing with issues.
mm-hmm.
That they're
Yeah.
dealing with issues. And so what I was able to do was just do a lot of research. Obviously there's obvious trauma that that people experience, like the physical abuse and people who've been through war and stuff like that. That's where you have the PSD from the troops, PS, and then you have the people that
PTSD, right?
witness death, right? If you witness the death, or what about being in a bad neighborhood, a violent neighborhood, and you see a lot of your friends get murdered and a lot of robberies and stuff like that. I don't think people realize that being in that environment is similar to almost being in a war zone where it causes trauma
Right,
for
right.
sure.
And on top of that, it also it
Also,
starts to mold your environment, like how you go about life, you know, how you
Yes.
start to look at things for sure.
Yes, definitely. What you about to say, Jimbo?
also, you got to keep them. I'm about to say you got to keep in mind too when it comes to kids. Like, you, I've spoken to people that they were traumatized as kids by stories that were told to them, and know what I'm saying. They grown and they're afraid of the dark.
Yep, yep, for sure. And so, Melissa, you mentioned that it does something to your view of life.
Yes.
Right. And that's
Indeed.
one of the major reasons why we have to deal with our trauma, because it obscures our view and our perception of reality and people and things that we go through a lot of times. And sometimes we don't even know it. Sometimes we don't even know it. We think this is just us, but in fact it's not. It's that trauma speaking through us. It's that trigger coming up. And
Right.
so it hinders a lot of time. It can hinder us from becoming successful.
So true. So true. I think at the root of success or being successful, I mean, you got to know how to deal with your trauma because especially with in business and personal relationships, I mean, you're dealing with people all the time. We're relational. And so if you're not able to overcome or at least actively work at healing from trauma, I think it can really put a damper on all of your relationship as a whole. Then you'll always feel stuck. Like there'll always
Hmm.
be like a wall that you can't cross or a barrier. because of that trauma, you know. And again, trauma, back to viewing life, it really does, it begins to paint. It's like the moment you experience trauma, it's like you were marked, right? You were
Hmm.
stabbed, so to say. And then if you don't take time to heal that, it becomes like it starts to grow things around it that shouldn't really be there, all the scab and stuff, you know. So for
Wow.
sure. Yep.
Definitely. And so again, that's one of the reasons why it's important that, we face it. And just to let people know, um, definitely you do not have to go through this by yourself. You want to make sure that if you're experiencing any type of trauma or having any type of issues, that you do seek professional help, or make sure you put yourself, with the right people as well to help lead you in the right direction.
Right.
Everybody can't afford to have counseling and stuff like that. So it's always good if you have a pastor or a spiritual leader or somebody that you trust that can at least help you with, pointing yourself in the right direction. Because a lot of times it is very, very damaging if it goes untouched. If we just leave it alone as it is. Now, there are some things that we talked a little bit about, mentioning the going through war, um, physical abuse. Those are some of the obvious things that obvious events that cause trauma. Now, what about some of the events that's not real obvious, things that we go through, like breakups? You're in a relationship, you've been in a relationship for a long time, or and then you have a hard breakup. That could be traumatizing. What do you guys
Right.
think about that?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
ruin a lot of people's lives, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that would.
Exactly.
That would. That
Exactly.
would. I mean, that'll cause you to even,
But
especially with relationships. Jimmy, what were you gonna say? I'll hold my phone.
oh nah, I just about to say that go back to what Adrian talk about all the time, like your mindset.
Yes.
Like when it come to trauma and fear and things, like how you said, you got to face it. You got to have the right mindset or have the right team around you, so that you can deal with those issues and whatever it is that happens. Whether you got to
Very
talk
true.
about it or some people you got to go punch a punching bag or something. You got to get rid of that stuff, or it's gonna eat
True.
away at you. You got to get it out.
Right, right. You know, it's interesting that you say because we're speaking about trauma and just going through some. I learned this from a chiropractor, right?
Mhm.
And he said that there's three types of trauma that people go through in their life. The first one is a chemical trauma, emotional trauma, and physical trauma.
Mhm.
And the whole point of him explaining that is how we process trauma, how we deal with it, and a lot of times how it just stays trapped. And so when he was speaking about like the health of the nervous system, our nervous system just it holds everything, right? It gives off information off to the rest of our body, and it communicates back and forth with our brain. And so he says when we trap this trauma, it actually causes a block in our nervous system, and
Yeah.
it stops like communication as a whole. And so what ends up happening is a lot of times we end up compensating for whatever pain we feel, whether physically or emotionally, you know. And so right now, because we're talking about trauma, I mean it goes as a whole, but just imagine the type of things that we've been through that we wouldn't even think, like even like the not so obvious ones, that have marked us, right? Have marked us in our mind and our memories, and we go about living our lives with that reality that might not even be a reality. You know what I mean? It's just something that just needs to be purged. So I just thought it was interesting. Oh, thank you, Shakina. Yes, 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 yes. It can make
What
you
she say?
sick. That's your wife. That's your wife.
She over there
So
commenting.
it's
You don't
important.
have my permission to comment.
It's important. Shoot, the
No,
best
I'm just
cheerleader.
kidding.
Yes, no, thank you for that. I mean, that blew my mind away, and I think that when we go about healing trauma, I think it's a good perspective to have.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, when you talk about the three different ones, you said chemical trauma, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
has to do with our chemical reactions to the situation that
Hormones.
we're in.
Yeah, right.
Hormones, yeah.
Right. So when you think about a situation and you're under so much stress, right? What happens? Your cortisol levels are through the roof. I mean, your adrenals. I mean, so many different things. You know, even down to the food. Like
Mhm.
this is such a wide topic when it comes to trauma, but it's a very real part of everybody's lives, you know, and it's something that should be dealt with by seasons and stages. You know, like you can't hit it all at once. I mean, I know there are areas of my life that I'm completely free of as it relates to trauma, but I know that there's trigger points, right? So I think is identifying the trigger points, identifying, you know, what sense, right? I think you and I had spoken, but there's sense. There are things that trigger people's trauma or memory to think of something,
Yes.
you
Oh
know? And
yeah.
when it comes up, I think it's the right moment to be like, hey, this came up for a reason. Like, what do I need to deal with, right? So it's like you said, finding who can help you go through that. You know?
Exactly. And a lot of times that the trauma is that stuff is stored. So when that trigger comes up, you're already at a high level where you've either upset or frustrated or and it's just easy to trigger some type of destructive behavior, either, cursing somebody out or, hitting somebody or just doing something. So that's why it's important to deal with it so that you always bring your levels back down so that you're not on edge. And so
Right.
that's definitely a good point to realize. Also, when it comes to the chemical imbalance, I did a study. A lot of the diseases and sicknesses that we have, about I think it was about 80% of them can be contributed to stress.
Right.
And so stress is the direct result from trauma, meaning the way we hold a lot of things that happen to us, how we don't forgive. And that's why we're going to get into forgiveness or, just how we store those things in our cells. I don't think a lot of people realize that our cells, even though we're this body that's filled with cells, we still stored, a lot of the things that we go through. And so
Yeah.
that's important. So it
Right.
can cause headaches, it can cause stomach aches, and which lead to other problems. And so also, Shakina put fight or flight. That's a chemical,
Yeah.
balance imbalance that's released whenever
Yeah.
you feel a certain way. And so the issue is that if you're feeling that way all day or for long periods of time, it becomes detrimental to the body.
Right. There's an opposite to that too, the flight or fight, and I think I have it right, but it's called rest and digest. I think that's what I heard. I came across it actually this week or last week. I came across it and I thought it was super interesting because we hear fight or flight, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we can fight, but when is it the time to rest, you know, and digest what you've been going through? Because I think processing that trauma in itself, it can like create a whole other level of stress if you're not
Yes.
careful. You know, if you're not careful, you're like, oh my, like you said, it's a stomach aches. I think one of the main things that my body would manifest itself in would be stomach aches, like when I'm stressed and just going through some stuff. Yeah, so that's good, Jody. You're so funny. It's so funny.
Jody.
You're
But
funny.
I had did a podcast about maybe a couple months ago about bringing yourself back to peace every single day. Every
Mm,
single day, we have to find a way to get rid of the stress or get rid of the bad emotions or just the situations that we've been through either at work or throughout the day. We have to find a way to bring our levels back down to peace where we're peaceful and we're starting over so that we're not constantly in that fight or flight mode, because you can live in that stage for a long time, probably weeks or months. You get frustrated at work, then you get frustrated at home, then you get frustrated with your friends, and you just constantly frustrated living in that chemical imbalance, that fight or flight mode, and not realizing it all this time. And then all of a sudden, you have this headache or this stomach ache or, this sickness, or the immune system breaks down and you get sick and all this other
yeah,
stuff and not realizing it.
it's true.
So and all this stuff has been medically proven as well.
Right, right. There's something you mentioned with the fight or flight. I lost my train of thought because this is such a loaded topic. So forgive me, like, because the main thing is I hope that whoever's watching this can get something out of it, you know, and like
Oh yeah, for
apply
sure.
it, you know, definitely apply it. Because trauma, I think it's something that it's evident that everybody's dealing with it. You know, we look around the world and we see what's happening. I mean, it's not a secret, you know. And a lot of things. and the steps to take, with overcoming that trauma. I mean, when it comes up, like I said, I'm gonna get my thought back. I'm gonna get my thought back. I'm gonna let you
Get
talk
it
because
back.
it was like right there, and it was like, nope, not right now. So it's
Bring it
reserved for
back.
another
It'll
time.
come back. It'll come back. So
For sure.
we was going through some of the things that's not very, overt, like some of the emotional traumas, like breaking up with your spouse or whoever. That could be traumatizing. How about being passed over for a promotion at a job? See, these are things that people don't realize that can sit inside them and cause, you to live in and be traumatic to you. Meaning it doesn't have to be traumatic where you walking around depressed or saying you want to kill yourself, but it could be the start of that. It's the start. It's the same emotions where inside you're feeling unhappy, you're feeling sad because you didn't get that promotion or you didn't get that, the job you wanted. So these are things that, we have to deal with in life. And even in childhood, a lot of times, being neglected as kids,
Ooh, that's
you
such a
know,
big one. Oh my gosh, that I think that's I can't say for everybody, but I think it's common in some way or another, right? Like neglect, like even without parents wanting that, So I think that's why it's the importance of affirmation, right?
yes,
And learning how to apply it and when, um, so it can help form the mind of that child, because as a child, I mean, you absorb so much, and from young, I mean, words may not stick, but pictures do, or images and
yes,
what you see. So
yes.
a child seeing or witnessing something around them, they can't really put into words how they're feeling, so they manifest it in a tantrum or whatever the case may be. So it's
Hmm.
learning how to decipher that and how to apply, that affirmation as I mentioned before, which is super important. And a lot of times, our trauma comes just from that. It comes from that neglect that we felt and not being reaffirmed or reassured. Hey, this is not the case. I want you to feel this or feel that or whatever. Sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Can I
so,
can I touch?
of course,
You get me? Can I touch on the job thing? Can I tell my story
yeah,
with the
Please.
absolutely, absolutely.
so I was in a manager in training position at one of my old jobs when I was down south, and two people I got passed over twice, and all I would hear from my boss is like, how good of a worker you are. You're always on time. You're so dependable. This, that, and the third. You're always willing to go above and beyond. And I got passed over once. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna. All right, keep it moving. Got passed over twice, and it's funny. Then I didn't see it until I got older. But how I allowed that trauma to take me from being one of the best workers that they claimed that I was, from me going above and beyond, doing my job, to not doing anything, doing the bare minimum,
Oh,
Wow. Yeah.
hurting myself. I wasn't hurting them, I was hurting myself.
Yeah.
wow.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because now the thought and theory is, oh, well, Jimmy don't get his way, he's not going to do what he's supposed to do. So now I'm really not helping my case on trying to be a manager at all. You know what
Wow.
I'm saying? Because you can't control your emotions.
Wow.
And that I hope that helps somebody. Just don't throw everything out because you don't get your way. Because all you're gonna do is keep digging yourself a hole, and you're
Thank
gonna
you.
continue to be in a bad position.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you know what's interesting is that a lot of people don't view that as trauma. Like I said, I was doing research and that was brought up, and that's huge. And it really changed my view on what trauma is. Any type of experience that you go through, right, negatively, that alters your behavior, that changes the way you view the
Oh,
world, can be considered some type of traumatic experience. Like
Right.
you was a good worker, always on time, and then because you was passed up, that altered your behavior, so you
Right.
started operating it a different way. So just think of how many people that was the beginning of the end of their job because
That's
they didn't
wild.
get that promotion. It was traumatizing. They didn't view it like that, but it was traumatizing to them, and they were like they instantly started looking for another job they probably loved. They probably loved that job. And so because
Mhm.
of that situation, they wasn't able to get over it. So they was like, I'm out of here. I gotta go.
Right, and that changes your behaviors again. Like it goes, it's like it's a vicious cycle, right? Like when you don't deal with those traumas. I mean, him feeling kind of salty after what happened in his job. I mean, that ultimately, I think that also plays into your esteem, because
Yes.
you start to question like, why was I passed over, twice, or
Yes.
why was I rejected this time, or why did this person say this to me, or why did I do this? Because they also like we cause our own trauma sometimes. It's not other people. We tend to kind of um, just be too hard on ourselves and we can end up hurting ourselves in that process and just creating new thought patterns that can really dictate how we go about the rest of
Absolutely.
our lives and how we deal with other people. I agree, Jimmy. I had some disappointing, very disappointing moments.
Oh, you
It's
have?
all
Oh, you
good.
have? Are you gonna share
It's
any?
all good. It's all good.
You you gonna share
It's
some?
similar.
Are you gonna share any stories? Are
Yeah.
you gonna share
Listen,
any stories from
just
Motorola
briefly. You ain't gotta
and
say all
American
the names.
Express?
I'm just kidding. You put him on blast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to be discreet. You know what I'm
Uh,
saying? And if you rather bet no. No, I think because and let's talk about passions, right? So this going along the topics of that, like Jimmy was talking about cooking, and it's the same thing with me. I love cooking. I have a passion for it, but I think that when you are so passionate about something, you are a lot more vulnerable to getting hurt. And
yes.
I think that's a reality that we need to make peace with and learn emotional intelligence and learn when to attach ourselves and when not to attach. And coach, you mentioned something last time we spoke. Is like, don't be so emotional. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
go right into in the sense of business, or we need help in a client or whatever the case may be, because you're there to do a job for them, right? I digress, but the point what I was mentioning is that my passion again is cooking. I have many things that I love to do, but there was a point where I felt like that passion was being stripped away because I wasn't going to where I needed to go, even though I felt ready to do so. But that other entity or the other people weren't seeing that, and so I felt like I still had like somebody's thumb was on me, and so with that feeling, it caused a lot of like second guessing. Like, well, am I going to do this? Should I? How should I do it? And
Yeah.
so I think that that's what happens. So when you're passionate about something, you're open to a lot of pain. You're open to it, like regardless. It's inevitable. It's just learning how to get through it.
Yes. Wow. And so I would tell you the danger in that is that it can become a habit inside your personality. It could become a habit. So and it'll transfer over to relationships and other jobs and different. So uh, whenever you feel like you're being passed over or somebody's holding you down, you're going to react the same way. You're either going to walk away from that relationship or walk away from that job the same way. And so that's where the danger comes in is time. Time takes everything that we do and it turns it into a habit. And so that's why some of the times we have to really, like you mentioned, do emotion check, be conscious of our emotions and how we're feeling
Right.
and make sure that we correct that because we don't want it to transfer into the next job. Sometimes people, I mean, obviously it hurts, if you've been working at a place for a long time
Uh-huh.
and you're qualified, you can do it and you're up next and they skip you and go to another person. What's the proper way to deal with that? Huh? What's the pro that
Leave.
this
Flee, go, get out.
just leave? He said just
For
leave.
real. I feel
Just
you.
leave. Just
I
You
don't
can
leave.
think
leave. You can leave, Jay. But remember, here's the thing. It's crazy because when you don't deal with the situation the way that you need to deal with that situation, you end up going toward the same thing, right? And you
yes,
attract the same thing. So what happens?
exactly.
And it's a pattern that we see everywhere around us. I mean,
Yeah.
indirectly or not directly. But we see people in places that they hate because they just feel like they gotta be there. You know what I mean? Because something in their mind hasn't like caused them to make a decision to like be like, hey, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Like to kind of react, like what's going on, and it goes, yo, this is so low. It goes even down to like who you even share this with. You know what I mean? Like we were talking earlier about going through. Like when you're going through life, you can't go through life alone. Like you weren't meant to go through life alone, especially in the moment
So I
where
got
you're
a
going
question.
through the season. What's up?
So instead of leaving in that situation, y'all want to know what I did?
What you do
I
besides
called the meeting with.
besides being late?
No. I still showed up on time.
Okay.
And I never called out. I called the meeting with all the managers, and I gave everybody a piece of my mind. We had a real nice conversation. I was calm, but I was very stern. I told them how I felt about them, and I wanted some explanations. They gave me some explanations. I wasn't pleased with those,
Okay.
and
That's
I just
good.
made the situation worse because I got skipped again.
You think you got
So
skipped
I think
again?
they didn't. Yeah, so
Okay,
I
well,
think
you
they didn't
laughing
like what
about
I
it, so
had to
you
say to
got
them.
over that one. That's good. As long as you can laugh about it, you know.
Gosh.
Well,
All right.
one of the managers, I'm still cool with him to this day, so it was all
That's cool.
gravy.
That's cool.
So I think that having a meeting and talking with the people is good in that particular situation.
If
So
it's
I
safe,
think
of course, you know.
yeah, I think if you can do this without changing character, without making sure that you're taking care of your responsibility and doing everything you're supposed to do, then I don't think there's an issue with that. And then give
Mhm.
yourself time. If you get to the point where you feeling uncomfortable, or you feel like it keeps happening, then give yourself a time. Be like, hey, if I don't achieve this by this particular time, then I'm going to find a different place. I'm going to try to find somebody that appreciate what I can do, or you know what I'm saying, something like that. But don't
That
just
goes
abruptly
for real.
leave. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that when you do leave, that you're happy with everybody, your relationship's good, you do your 2 week notice or however you have to do it, and then you just, say, hey, I gotta go.
Or 1 week or 3 days, according to certain handbooks. You don't gotta give 2 weeks. I mean,
Yeah, you're
three
right.
days.
Depending on what the
I'm
handbook
just
is.
saying, like, oh, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you know, sometimes you gotta apply. I'm just saying, people do two
Hey,
weeks out of
they
respect,
didn't
but
even let me finish my 2 weeks.
oh
They
really?
didn't, or they fired you.
No, yeah, they're like Jimmy. If anybody called, we'll tell them that you did your 2 weeks, but you can just go. I said good, and I walked out.
All right, all right. Yeah, because we don't need that stress. In 2 weeks, the most awkward 2 weeks is the last 2 weeks of the job. For real.
Jody,
The most
look,
awkward.
Jody know he's on the Impact podcast, so he put EFF. You gotta love my dude.
That's so funny. That's cool.
I gotta get if you send me his email, I'll put him on. Jody like to clown around, but
Hey Jody, send your email, man. Send
I
your
just
email
seen
to
the
Coach
link.
A.
I'll get
So,
him in there.
so we have trauma, right?
Yes.
And there's cycles to this stuff, right? So
Hmm.
you experience like you have a contact, that contact with the what is the circumstance or the
Yeah.
event, right?
Yep.
Then you feel some type of way with it. You
Yep.
don't deal with it, so then you start creating. A lot of people are passive aggressive, right? We see that everywhere.
Right.
Um, but then you don't deal with it, so you start developing, like you said, like around it, like your habits around it.
Yeah.
You get triggered, but you don't deal with the triggers, so then add that to the trauma, and then every time something triggers you, you remember the first time it happened to you, so then tack that stress on top of it, right? So it's just a buildup. Then you start getting angry, right? And so you start manifesting in all these different types of ways, and you don't deal with that. And even though you know it could be wrong, because there are people that know that how they act is wrong, it's just now they're just so deep in it that they don't even know how to deal with it. But then tack the anger on it, and then once the anger hits, it becomes like what? There's resentment, there's so much that can trickle, and that
Wow.
can, yes, that can sprout. Man, these are seeds that we plant. Like trauma, just consider trauma like the ground, and then all these other seeds just start going
exactly.
into there, you know?
So getting back to your getting back to your cycle, um, a lot of people don't realize how exactly how it works. So, like you mentioned, you have this experience, right? And so once you have this negative experience, it doesn't become traumatizing until you assign a certain emotion to it.
Right.
And so what happens is when you assign that negative emotion to it, then that's when it's kind of like a branding, like when like in the cowboys on the farm or whatnot, they brand the cows and stuff like that.
Yep.
So whenever you
Mhm.
assign something, whenever you assign the emotion to something, it brands it. And once it's branded, it sticks with you.
Mm.
So if you have some type of abuse or something, you remember that and you brand it as, horrible and mad and or, frustrating, whatever the situation is. And that branding follows that incident with you everywhere you go. And so,
Right.
like you mentioned, you might get a trigger if you see something that's similar to it or whatnot. It'll build up and you might get the anger, you might get the anxiety or, depression or whatever the situation is.
Right.
You're
Right.
absolutely right. So I do have some symptoms of emotional trauma, right? So these are things that people go through that sometimes they don't know, because sometimes you could be so far separated from that incident. It could be 15, 20 years down the line, and you don't even realize that your reaction is because of something that happened when you was 15
Yeah.
years old or when you was,
Right.
9 years old. You don't realize
Right.
that. So one of them is being overwhelmed. You know,
Mm.
Anxiety and stress develops in the aftermath of trauma. And so they're connected. So if you have a person that's overwhelmed with anxiety or they're overwhelmed with fear and different stuff like that, it's connected to some type of, it can be connected to some type of traumatic experience. And so if you're an individual out there that has a lot of anxiety or stress, just, over all the time, then you might want to, look deep into yourself, into your past, and see, where is this coming from? Why am I always feeling like this?
Right. Right. I agree. I agree. I remember quick quick story. I'm gonna combine them, but in my life there was two occasions where, maybe a few occasions where I experienced robberies. So one when I was younger, the robbery was at gunpoint in a family's home, and I
Wow.
was young. I was maybe, I want to say it was maybe about 7 or 8 years old, and there was other traumas before that, but needless to say, when in my adult or my teen years, I was also robbed. So those two different robberies, they had caused me to look at specific people a certain way and just pass judgment because of, those past robberies. And so that's what trauma does. Like it's, and I'm talking about it now because obviously it's something that God has been working with me in, like, as it relates to judgment and being more open and also aware of my surroundings. So I'm overly aware of my surroundings to the point that I've developed certain memory skills. It's crazy, like, because of it's so wild. I'm telling you, this is like there's pros
Hoodie,
to this, right?
Rick.
Because there's things that happen to our lives and it happens for us, right? Like, I have that mentality. Like, even though I experienced these different robberies on different occasions and whatever other that followed those things, but there was also things that developed within me to be on point, so now, like, I have a thing of remembering certain things that another person might not be able to remember, but it's because there was a heightened sense in me, something that happened or was triggered in those times that causes me to now, like, when I'm in certain areas, like, I know, like, okay, well, I remember this just in case something goes off or something pops off. I know, so
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it
Black
caused
hoodie,
me.
black
Huh?
hoodie, red letters, yellow shirt.
Oh gosh. Listen, let me just say, like, it's wild, but, like, so people know, like, don't, you can learn from trauma is what I'm trying to say. Like, you can learn so much, and it doesn't have to become you, but it can develop you in a lot of different areas, and I think I'm developing certain areas because of
Yeah.
the traumas that I've been through with those.
Yeah, well, you could definitely, go through some experiences and it make you a stronger person. And of course, every experience makes us a stronger person. If you think about it, when we go to the gym, we use the resistance to make us stronger. So naturally, emotionally, anytime you go through something and you come out on the other side, you become that much of a stronger person. But of course, you just have to focus on being that stronger person. Just like you said, like you have a acute memory now with certain things. You can recognize what everybody have on, if they got
Yes.
a gun bulge or not.
Situational awareness, my people. If you don't know what it is, please get in tune with that, because now in the day, in this digital age, people are distracted with this little device, with the phone. I'm telling you, people be coming out like crossing the street on their
Yep.
phones and stuff, and you gotta be on point, because I'm telling you, I'm saying.
I've been through
Got
I'm
hey,
just
I've been
saying.
through a robbery. I've been through a robbery too. I used to work at a hotel, right? Long time ago. I worked at a hotel and it was late. It was late at night. I never forget, about like one in the morning. And so this guy came in and he was like, "Y'all got any rooms left?" And I was like, "No, sir. All we have is kings and suites." And he pulled out. I don't even know if he had a gun. I just know he had a towel over his hand and something, and he banged the table. He was like, "Bam, bam. Let me get the money then."
Oh
Oh
my
my God.
They're like,
This
you're
was in
rookie,
Ohio?
aren't
Yeah, this was in Ohio. This was Ohio. He's like, "Let me
you?
get the money
Oh
then."
man.
I
Wow.
know. I
How
was
you
like,
rob a hotel, bro?
"A hotel."
Wow. Listen, it's definitely possible. My situation was outside. I was robbed outside by two
So hold on,
guys. And
let me tell you this. Let me finish this. So
yeah,
I'm going into the, how registers are. They have the change drawer you lift up and they put all the big bills down there, right?
right.
So I gave him all the top bills. There was only a few hundred. And he was just standing there and he wouldn't go. I'm like, "Dude, I gave you the money. I'm saying it to myself. I'm like, you got the money. What are you standing there for?" And so I was like, and I wasn't thinking. I was like, well, maybe he want this change. And I lift the change thing up and I had all the money down there. I was like, "You want this change?" And he was like, "No, let me get that down there."
Oh my gosh. But in that moment though, like you were cooperative, right? So it's,
Yeah, I was
but
calm. I mean, I was
man,
calm. I was calm. I wasn't trying to give him everything, but but the dude came in, the owner, it was a Indian guy. He was a nice guy. He was like, "Man, next time just get a dude, everything. Don't try to, trick him or save anything." I was like, "All right," but
I couldn't eat. I was pale for after the.
you
I,
couldn't eat after
when
that.
I was this was when I was younger. The trauma that I experienced when I was younger, yes, because around me it was like hood and it was in Puerto Rico, and so it was like, oh my god, like everywhere I went, I swear, like people had like a piece on them, and I was like, oh my god, it was just, I mean, it was just wild. It was wild, and my mom was there too, so that also, like, I don't know what it developed, like maybe overprotection or maybe just something, because she was the one that faced them. So in that moment, like everything went off. It was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna lose my mom? Am I gonna die? Or like, what's gonna happen? So those are those things that, and you develop again these certain behaviors. But what else? Jimmy, were you gonna say something? Oh, he's on mute right now.
He's mute. So do you go back to Puerto Rico?
No, no, you good.
I did. I loved it. I went back some years, actually about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I would say that I went back as an adult, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. And then recently, when I was robbed out here when I was visiting my dad. So it was, I want to say, yeah, some years ago, a little over 12 years ago, in my teen years, I was robbed. So I was like, dang, man. Like, I finally was like, oh my gosh. Because it was like, I loved Florida, but there was like a negative, and I was like, dang, man, what's
I
going
was traumatized in Puerto Rico too, driving up that mountain. I'm telling you, it's only two roads and there's no railing or nothing. And you be zipping around that thing, going around the mountain, and the other people coming down, they don't even be caring, boy. They was zeroing.
on? No, 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 no. So we already know it's a. But now when we do this trauma thing, right? Because we deal with it. We got to deal with it. I mean, it's a fact. I can't stress it enough, like how stuck you'll be, or if you don't decide to deal with trauma. You know what I mean? We're never gonna have it 100%. I think there's still areas in our lives that we might still have to deal with, you know, or that we're currently dealing with. But
Hmm.
the fact of the matter is, we have trauma, we've experienced, we've all had a hard life growing up in some way or another. And it's about, okay, finding someone who can help you walk through that. Like I said, like you shouldn't do it and you can't do it alone, because there's just wisdom that people can pour into you, about your situation that you might not see just by yourself, you know. So it's
Absolutely.
important to share how you felt, like what it made you think about, and taking, you know, actions toward healing from that and forgiving that next
Absolutely.
topic.
So before we're gonna get into that healing portion, I got a couple more symptoms for emotional trauma. We talked about being overwhelmed, with anxiety and stress, and kind of like feeling like your life is, you're not in control of your life. And what about overreacting? Emotional overreacting. There's another symptom of dealing with trauma. Like a lot of people are not, I don't want to say exaggerate, but a lot of times they're overreacting to certain things or small things, and the reason they do that is because it's stemming from some type of incident or something that they had before. And then of course we talked about this earlier. It's shame is also a symptom of emotional trauma as well. And any type of incident that you have can cause any of these emotional triggers or these emotional states of overwhelming, being overly reacting to certain things, and shame as well. And so these are symptoms that if you find yourself feeling these often, then you might want to take a look at your particular life and your situation to figure out why do you feel like this, so that you can get that control back. You can get that control back, and you begin to just bring yourself down and view life in a different way, because you'd be surprised how
Mm,
many people view life as dangerous or overwhelming, or they're not in control.
yeah,
And that's pretty tough, and it's actually not the case. We're all in control of our own destiny. Obviously we can't control each and every moment or every situation, but we
right,
can definitely control our perspective.
right, right,
So how we heal from trauma, right? Healing from trauma and walking in forgiveness, which is the next step. Because obviously, if you've been through some type of trauma, it might have an individual that's involved as well, and so you have to walk through that step of forgiving that person as well in order for you to get past the trauma. You
right,
know, or forgiving yourself. You might have made a mistake that caused some type of, traumatic incident or something, and you haven't forgiven yourself for that.
right.
So it's real huge when it comes to walking through that. I will tell you one thing that I've learned within the last few years that was simply amazing to me, right? Amazing to me. And it's kind of like reassigning emotions. I think that's just the most amazing thing that I learned about human beings, that whatever experience you went through in the past, you can actually go back there in your mind and reassign positive emotions to that experience.
Wow,
And so that now, whenever you think about that, it changes. It's no longer traumatic. And I think
wow.
that, it takes practice and there's the steps that you have to do. But I just think that's amazing, because there's a lot of people that, and I'll give you an example. They had a lady that she was scared of cows. Like she used to, when she used to walk home, she used to walk through like a cow pasture or whatever it was. And so one time one of the cows was chasing her, and that was just so traumatic to her. And so now whenever she
Wow.
was near a cow or she saw a cow, she would get all sweaty and nervous, and it just affected her that way. And so
Mm-hmm.
one of the ways she was able to get over it was to actually think about that particular incident when she was chased by the cow, go back there and change the characters. You almost view it like a movie, and you
Ah,
change. You view yourself, you view the cow, and then you can change it. You can put theme music behind it, like funny
oh my god.
music. Yeah, I'm telling you, and it's
Wow.
amazing. And you can actually change events like that. And so
Ah,
think about it, our subconscious mind, because that's where you're changing, views things, either what you see or what you thinking, it views all those things as real. That's how come people can watch scary movies and get scared and stuff like that, because their subconscious mind views everything as real, as if it's happening. It doesn't recognize sarcasm, it doesn't recognize jokes, it just views things as real. So you can, that's one technique that people use to kind of change their emotions or change some of the stuff that they've been through to help them deal with stuff in the future. So
Wow,
I thought that was
very
real
impressive.
interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it, man. Anytime any study when it comes to the brain and behavior and stuff like that, I love it. I love it,
it's
especially when
very
you start
interesting.
tying scriptures into it too. Oh man, you have me, boy. So healing. So that's one technique. Obviously, you know, forgiveness. You know, how do we forgive? Like,
Oh my goodness. Forgiveness. Chef Jimbo, no, because I was talking to him. We spoke last year actually, and I was honest, right, bro? Like I told you, I was like, listen, I'm struggling in this
Yeah,
area,
you
uh
but
oh,
listen,
you
but
really
this,
was, and I
and
was
he
shocked.
was shocked. Yes, he
he
was
was
shocked.
shot.
Yeah, because this is the thing. We are so good at putting up a front with certain things, not everything. There's
Yes.
certain things that we train ourselves really well to put up a front. And not that I was putting up a front, but it was something that I struggled with and I didn't want to expose, you know?
Hmm.
But needless to say, it was the area of forgiveness or the lack of forgiveness. But to your point, really quick with healing, with the memory and like rewriting everything, like if you're gonna deal with trauma, I 100% recommend that if you're gonna replay these memories, coach, like you were saying, like you can go back
Yeah.
to the moment.
Recode
You
it.
need to share with somebody, and don't
Yes.
scare them, but just be like, listen, I'm dealing with some stuff. This is what I'm going through. Because listen, if you go through that, even through that process alone, without somebody knowing, you might do more damage. You know,
Exactly.
because you need to expose, like, have a level of transparency where you're letting somebody know, listen, this is what I'm going through. This is how it's making me feel right now. It's nothing against you, but I need to share with you so that if anything, you know it's not against you. You know, like these are little things that we do, and specifically in marriage. I mean, me as a married person, my husband knows, hey, I'm going through something. It's not you. I just feel some type of way. Just give me some space, you know. And so I do that so that there's no lack that like there's no lack of security. There's no one wondering or is it me or whatever. You know, like I let it be clear. So again, to the point of healing, you gotta let somebody know I want to heal. I'm in the process of healing. This is what I'm healing from. Not so detailed if you don't want it, but I need some help or I need somebody to know. You know, like I think somebody needs to know that you're going through that.
Mhm.
Because if you're gonna go back and rewrite or put a different emotion to it, it's gonna bring up some junk, you know? And you
Yeah.
wanna make sure it's being dealt with.
Well, the thing that's pretty ironic is that you always bring it back up anyway. That's why it's trauma. So
Mm-hmm.
so it is good to have somebody to share it with and to help communicate, to help you along with that process for sure.
Right.
So, but definitely it always comes up. That's what make it traumatic, is that it's never hidden, it's never gone. It comes up in some type of way. And
Mm.
so, it's better if we can bring it up with our control for those reasons. And a lot of times you can't do it with other people. It just depends on who you with, for sure.
That's
It's
true.
it's just a technique.
Very
So
true.
forgiveness. Woo. I was thinking about forgiveness, right?
For real.
And so remember I sent you, I forgot to send it to Jimmy, that that story about the Amish community. So in the
That's
Amish
a whole other
community,
level.
but that's the only level of forgiveness
It
we should.
is. I say whole other level because man, like you,
It is this level.
it's man, the level. That's what it is, and it's hard. You know, it's
So
hard, but it's doable.
yeah. So you want to tell them what happened?
All right. So briefly, long story short, there was a gentleman or a guy in the story who went into a school and he had some trauma, right? So he had
Yeah.
some trauma,
He lost his
and
daughter.
right, he lost his daughter, And so he had anger or resentment toward God for allowing his daughter to be taken away, or for God taking away his daughter. That's how he perceived it. And
Mhm.
so what he did was he went into school one day, he barricaded, right? And he tied up young girls, and he one by one, like he had them turn around and like face a chalkboard, as the story goes, and one by one he executed them. And so that family, the families of the girls that were killed, they they actually showed up at the day of the funeral, right? So they did a funeral. He turned the gun after he killed the girls. He turned the gun to himself and he killed himself, right? So
Exactly.
that's how that story ended. So his parents, there's a documentary that's talking about the situation, and then it came to the day of the funeral and the service, where they were doing the service for those who had died, but it was for the son, right, for the one who actually did the killing spree.
Yeah.
And at that moment, there were people that were taunting the family who were grieving the one who did the crime, yes. But then there was a select few family members that came, and they actually created like a barrier between those who were taunting the family who was grieving of the guy who did the crime. And so the family that kind of created like a barricade around the family to kind of help them, with the respect, for them to pay respects, were people that had lost their daughters, not one, but they lost both daughters because they were in that class. And so the story goes on that it was like it painted such a story of forgiveness without even saying it, without even saying I forgive you, but just illustrated in their actions, especially toward the mom who was, like questioning like what happened, like because the mom was actually struggling to forgive her own son for doing the crime. And
Yeah.
so when she saw that happen, it softened her heart, and she was like, I just forgive him, I let it go, so she let that go, and whatever lack of forgiveness toward her son, and she was made free. So that was the whole thing of forgiveness. Like it was modeled, right? It was modeled by somebody, and that helped the mom, trying to forgive her own son. Like,
Exactly.
oh my god.
Exactly. So
Wow.
it's like it was genuine, right? So
Right.
I made so just thinking about forgiveness, I just made a couple notes like forgiveness is genuine, it's genuine love and empathy.
Mm,
Like if you truly forgive somebody, then it's to have empathy for them, to realize that what they they went through some type of trauma to get to where they are. Yeah, they did something to us or they did something bad, but true forgiveness, you recognize that they went through something to get to that point. There's
right.
some type of trauma or some type of incident that got them to that point.
Right.
And so when you begin to view it like that, it helps you when it comes to forgiveness. It helps you when you begin to view people that hurt you in that manner.
Right. And I think it's a decision. It's a decision. We hear that a lot, and it may sound cliche, but really, I mean, when it comes down to forgiveness, like you got to decide, because the fact of the matter is you're going to be hurt. People are going to disappoint you. You're going to get betrayed. You're going to go through it all through your life. You know, but at that point, because it's something that's inevitable, there are things that you can and cannot control, and so because it's like that, and that's just the rule of life, and there are things that you got to like pre-decide that you're just going to no matter what. And I think that that was something for me that I had to come to terms with, as I had shared with Jimmy, that it was an area of my life that I was struggling, and it was forgiveness. But I was so determined to work on it, and praise God that He was able to bring me out of that and give me a little bit more empathy, because that was something that I knew that I was lacking. That I was insensitive to a lot of people, in their thoughts and their feelings and emotions. So it was really deciding that, and one of the things that did help me was I have a good friend of mine who actually loaned me this book. It's called Forgiving Forward. This is
Oh
one of the
yeah.
books that has helped me a lot change my perspective as it relates to forgiveness and being doing Tuesday, and being able to let go and also forgive myself. I told you, Coach. I mean, at the beginning of the year, last year, 2020, was a year of straight up forgiveness for me. Like, it was one of the main things that was being dealt with in my life, toward myself, toward people. And then from that, like being free from it. And now I can face these people, even though I might be annoyed, because they're things that we gotta be real. I'm just being real. Like sometimes, like I can't believe it, but you know what? Because I made a decision, I forgive you. You know. And forgiving yourself, guys. I think that's one of the most important things is
Absolutely.
learning how to forgive, and you won't forget. That's the biggest lie, in my opinion. Forgive and forget. You never forget. You know, it's always gonna be there. But now you can talk about it. You know, I think that's the
Yeah.
difference. Like you can forgive, and when it comes up, you might feel like when you have a wound that heals. You know, it just creates a scar, and it's there. You see it, you feel it. It feels a little weird, but you're like, you blow it off. You know, because I know I overcame that, so that's how it is.
So that to add to your point, listen to this. True peace is forgiveness. You can't have true peace without true forgiveness, because all the grudges and unforgiveness is stored in our head. It's stored where we are. And so in order to have that true peace, that stuff has to be emptied out. They're stored in the same area. Peace, right? Peace is stored in your heart. Unforgiveness,
That's different,
grudges is stored in your heart.
right?
So you can't have it unless you truly get rid of that stuff.
Right. Right. I agree. Oh my gosh. Listen, that's so true. You just said a whole load there because it's like a bank account, you know?
Yeah.
Like you have your checking, you have your savings, whatever. But you're investing in it, you know? That's your tank. Like you're investing a lot. Your emotional tank, right? As they call it. And it's like, what are you storing? Like you can't have garbage mixed with treasure, you know? Like you can't have
Dang,
it
yeah.
because it's just something that's gonna it's gonna tarnish it, you know. And I think our treasure really are those things that are intangible. You know, we have peace, we have forgiveness, and understanding the source of that too. You know, like understanding there is a source of forgiveness, there is a source of peace. I'm not preaching to the choir, but it's very evident. It's very evident where it comes from, and it's something that a lot of people want to bypass because it's me. I want to do it, and I can't do it on my own. I really can't do it on my own. So that's why it's necessary to understand that, and know that when you forgive, it's gonna 100% always go against the grain. You're never gonna. It's never gonna be a popular thing because you have people talking in your ear all the time, or
All the
people
time.
are always vomiting just words like you should do this and you should do that and you should, you know, it's hard. So don't take this with a grain of salt also, but also consider it because what works for me might not work for you guys, you know. But or whatever's said in this podcast, but it's important to at least listen to it and see what makes sense for you to apply in the season that you're in.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So think about forgiveness as you mentioned the bank account, right? So whenever somebody does something to you, right, it creates a debt. It creates a debt, like you owe them something. And so that's what that grudge is, that emotion is that you have this need to get even. They did something to you, and so you're not satisfied until this debt is paid, right? And
Yep.
so true forgiveness is clearing the debt.
Right.
True forgiveness is when you get to the point where you no longer hold them responsible and you're no longer seeking payment for that debt.
Right.
That means you want what's best for them. You're
Hey,
perfectly fine. You're not asking for no harm to them. In fact, you're asking for the best for them.
Yep.
That's when you reach that
it
true
sounds like you've
forgiveness.
been listening to a wise man named Jesus. You know.
You know what? I mean, I think
Oh yeah, I
you
that I
are
got I
on
got that.
point.
I got that for sure.
For sure. Listen, it
This was
is what
what
it
I was
It
is,
working
sounds
man.
out.
beautiful. It sounds beautiful.
It's,
I love it. I love it.
it's for real. It's the real thing though. Like that's what it is. I mean, it's humanity, you know? We're all
Yeah,
human. We're all human, man. I mean, we are so jacked up. I can't even begin. I can't even begin. But it's a process, you know?
it's
I
the
think it's a
process.
beautiful process for sure.
So I got some more notes. This is on how to forgive, how to make it your forgiveness a little bit easier for you, right? How to forgive. First thing, recognize that every person has experienced something to bring them to this point, right? Meaning that everybody, we talked about this, everybody's been through something or has went through something that that made them the way they are. Could have been trauma or whatever it is. And so they, it's not they, even Jesus said it, forgive them for they know not what they do, right? They don't realize what they're doing because of what they've been through. So that's just something that to help, like whenever you deal with a situation where forgiveness is needed, you view it that way. Look at that person and separate them from the incident and be like, you know what? I know this, even though this person made me upset or they made me mad or whatever the situation is, deep down inside they have some hurt or some issues that they're dealing with that they can't deal, that they need to fix.
Right.
So that helps you when it comes to forgiving.
It's true.
So here's the next point. You have to recognize that you are deeply imperfect yourself.
Woo! What you mean? It's your fault.
Yes.
Right, the blame game. That's so true. Oh my gosh.
You have to realize that all of us at some point in time cheated somebody, done somebody wrong, lied to somebody, or dropped the ball, right?
Yep.
When you truly recognize that, it's easy for you to forgive other people, knowing that you're not perfect.
Right. It's so much more about you, meaning us, than what it is about the other person in so many different ways.
Exactly.
Absolutely right. Yep.
Yeah. And so the last one, which I know we're going to agree, but everybody don't agree with this, is that forgiveness is faith in God. It's faith, right? Because
Yep.
we realize that God ultimately is going to make everything right. So we don't have to bear the burden of making it right. We don't have to bear the burden of, giving this person what they deserve or seeing this person get what they deserve. We already know that based on our faith, God is going to make everything right. Everything's going to work out. And so when you have individuals that don't believe like that, then it's going to be harder for them to muster up the emotion or the attitude of forgiveness to other people, because they feel like this person is going to make it and get away scot-free without no payment, without getting the payment off. When we
Right. It's
when
not
we
a
know.
yeah, I got you. That makes sense. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
No, it's not always gonna be reciprocal. Like it's not always gonna be if there two parties offend each other, like you might have a heart of forgiveness toward them, like hey, I forgive you or forgive me. That person might not forgive you for doing them wrong because it's just something in their perception. It's not you. It's just that they choose not to. So that's another thing that we gotta be comfortable with. Like I know I did wrong. I mean, I know you did wrong, but I'm letting you know, hey, forgive me for whatever I did, and I'm forgiving you. Even though you're not telling me you're sorry. So making me kind of bitter right now. Just kidding, but it's important to know that could happen. And you got to be okay with walking. Sure.
Yeah, and you're not, like you said,
I
you're not
think
gonna always hear. Go ahead, Jimbo.
Now, I'm about to say is like just piggybacking off of Melissa. Like when she said what she said, like some people not gonna come and ask for your forgiveness or say they forgave you. The first thing that come to mind is David. Whenever David repented or asked for forgiveness, he went straight to God. You know what I'm saying? He didn't go to people. He went to God.
Yeah.
That's so true. Actually, that was a whole mouthful there.
Yeah, and not only David. What about Joseph?
Oh,
yeah,
What about Joseph?
Yeah,
100%. Wow.
I was reminded of that story. I was reading that today about Joseph, about how he was sold into slavery and all these things. And he got to the point where he was like second in charge. And just think about this. Just think, you facing the people that did you wrong, right? facing people that did you wrong,
Yeah.
you have the opportunity to get back at them, and they not even know it's you.
That's real love. That's
That
real
is
love right there.
so. Oh my gosh!
They don't even know.
Wow.
You can get back at somebody, and then they won't even know it's you.
Right.
You just watching
Right.
them suffer or go through whatever it is, and you don't. They don't even know you doing it.
No.
Like,
No. No. He knew carefully too. Because here's the thing. It's kind of like the what goes around comes around thing.
yeah,
So or you reap what you sow.
yeah,
So like that's just something that has stuck with me for a while, and like in the years that I've been maturing more. Um, is that do I really want to do this to this person, even though I know I could, and I might not get caught for a little bit because I think everything catches up to you at some point,
yeah,
But I say that to say that do I want to do harm to that person? Do I really want to hurt them with my words, or where it really hurts? Like people, especially people close to us, we know what gets to them, and we know where to push that button. And so, do you really want to go there and sow that? Do you really want to sow that and then reap it? Because you don't sow and reap in the same season. You're going to sow this season, and then it's going to come up and bite you in a season where you didn't even expect it or
yeah,
didn't need it. So it's
yeah.
just some of the things to think about when it comes to trying to get back at people.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so, have y'all heard the Nelson Mandela quote
No,
about
which one?
Cool.
resentment? So Nelson Mandela's quote, and it's been, I'm sure you might recognize it when you hear it. He says that resentment is like drinking poison and hoping it kills your enemies.
Oh yes, I didn't know that was him.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh wow,
yeah. Okay.
wow.
So it just goes to show you a different perspective, but the importance of forgiveness and not holding grudges because it does more harm to us. In addition to the stuff we mentioned before, when it comes to stress, because it's all tied together. The body doesn't experience it. The body has the same emotions.
Mm,
It's the same range of emotions that we use for everything. When you're excited, when you're stressed out, when you're happy, when you're mad. It's just
right.
the emotional range is pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's important that we manage the stress. We manage the stress so that we're not feeling that way often, and we protect ourselves, our cells and our bodies and stuff like that. So
Right, right.
listen, that's all I
Awesome.
had. Do y'all have any more to add? I mean, it's been an awesome show already.
Oh, Shakina coming in with those. Mm-mm-mm. That's a whole other grudges. Listen, I mean that heart problems. Listen, guys, this is
Yeah.
huge. Shakina just dropped a whole other thing. Um, I have nothing else to add though because I can go on this topic for a while, but it looks different for everybody. This book though, I do recommend it. Forgiving Forward.
Forgiving forward.
Yes, Dr. Bruce and Tony Hebel or Hebel. Um, yes, but you see, she's dropping, Adrian. It dries up. It's true.
Dries up the
So
bones.
it dries up the bones. It really does. So that's what it is. It looks different for everybody. I mean, I don't know. I know somebody watching here is struggling with some type of area that we just spoke about today. So my hope and my prayer is that you guys take something from the show and reach out to somebody that you trust that can help you in the process. I think that's the most important thing. Being honest, right? Being honest and
Yeah.
transparent, and knowing that you're not alone. I mean, you're not the only person in the world who's dealing with trauma. It's just, and not dealing with shame. That's another thing that God has freed me from is that guilt, like that weight, just like it just feels so good. I'm like, thank you, Lord. And because he freed me from that, don't think for a moment that there's gonna be like little pieces that don't try to linger, like they will try, like the little crumbs will try to linger,
That's
but you
that
just gotta
enemy.
wipe the table. Right. Wipe the table clean, your slate is clean, and move forward. You gotta take steps forward. That's it.
Exactly. Jimbo, what's up, man? You still there?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm still here.
You got any last thoughts, man? We finna wrap it up.
Nah, man, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I don't got nothing else to say. I did have a story earlier, but I was like, you know what? I'll save that for another day.
Had a story earlier. So just to remind everybody, you're going to be cooking this week coming up, right? Next,
Yes,
Jimbo.
I'll be cooking that. You can hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah,
All
we
right,
can hear
yeah,
you.
yeah. Uh, Box by Chef Jimbo will be live, active, and in effect next week. Stay tuned.
Awesome.
Like I said, follow me. The menu will be up. I'll be cooking 2 times next week. Shoot, maybe I may be cooking Saturday morning breakfast. You don't even know. Just stay tuned.
Oh,
You're gonna do breakfast,
that's
and we
cool.
got
I might. I've been thinking about it.
some meals to give away too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we're gonna be
Wow,
giving
that's
away some meals to some of our faithful listeners for sure. So, you can get a meal from a
that's
box meal
awesome.
from Chef Jimbo for sure. Also, I want to add too, uh, check out the Impact radio station, www dot the number 4 MPACT.com. I'm gonna put it right down here. This is an awesome station. There we go. So a lot of new music, a lot of old school music as well. It's hits and hip hop. So you get a lot of the inspirational songs, and you also get some motivational hip hop. I'm telling you, it's nothing but fire. In the morning time, I got the Caribbean traffic jam. So if you stuck in traffic in the morning about eight
That's
o'clock,
cool.
I mean, not 8 o'clock. No, I'm sorry. That I got that mixed up. In the morning, if you stuck in traffic, right? I'm gonna have to see what my times are. I don't forgot what my times are. I do have the Caribbean traffic jam, so you can listen to all my Caribbean hits. Lunchtime, I got Spanish at lunchtime, so you can listen to my Spanish hits from noon to 1 o'clock. Awesome. I got little salsa, reggaeton, all that stuff is mixed in there.
That's cool. That's cool.
And then of course,
Reggaeton.
yeah, and then of course at 8 p.m. every night, and this is all week, 8 p.m. at night, I have the top 8 hits that I have, a lot of my hip hop hits that I have going on. So, but throughout the whole day, you get a mixture of, a little Spanish, you get a lot of hip hop, a lot of contemporary. You also have some old school. I'm real big because I've been listening to the music for like over 20 years. So I have a lot of old school hits in there as well. The main thing is all positive. So you can listen to it, your kids can listen to it, your grandma can listen to it, your mom can listen to it, everybody listens
Everybody,
to
the
it,
whole
and
family.
nobody will get offended at all, for
That's
sure.
cool. That's really cool.
Exactly. So again, I appreciate everybody that was tuned in. Miss Melissa, right?
Thanks for having me.
It's going to be next Friday, right?
Yes, what are we talking about next Friday?
Yeah. What are we
Stay
talking
tuned
about?
for that.
I'm trapping Melissa to be a co-host on the show
Yes,
as often as we can. So we gotta get a schedule up.
for
Um,
sure.
I don't even know what it is, but just
We
stay
have it
tuned.
though. We did schedule. We got it on there. We planned it. We got even down to like almost next. Well, to next year we're talking about too, which is great.
Exactly.
So
So
that's cool.
all right. So
Thank you
everybody
so
have
much.
a great evening. Have a
Yes.
great weekend. And until
All
next
right.
time, here's the outro.